Okay. We are going to get started. President Romney is not here this evening, so in his absence from the meeting, we're going to do a roll call. Trustee Pollax, Trustee Listener here, Trustee Milopoulos here, Trustee Hunterman here, Trustee Ruby here, Trustee Scott here, and Curly Brown is
here. Well, you know, there.
Right, just for the record, President Rome is not present for purposes of the forum or the meeting. He is not participating notably, but rather he is observing. So in as you see, because of that, I'm going to ask for a motion to appoint temporary chair, a absent from the village president.
So moved.
And then temporary chair would be. Okay. You can take it. We have a motion and a second. All of it. Okay, in that case, you can go over. Turn it over to you. Thank you. Well, being here. So. Pursuant first thing steps, pursuant to our board recently adopted public comments. It's a look for the regular meeting scheduled for the same meeting as this committee of the whole meeting. Public comment will occur only during the board meeting. Begins at 7 p.m. Now, if you have a comment on the agenda item that is included in this agenda, I'll request those comments be provided when we reach that item on the agenda. And the appropriate time and comments on the agenda item. If anyone wants to speak, that will be limited to 3 minutes, and we'll go to the speaker when it's up and that. To lead us through a discussion
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So, following the successful approval of the village of speaking of all rule authority on November 5th, 2024, the village has started to thoughtfully utilize its authority to reduce potential tax liability for our residents. On the screen, you'll see the village has already taken one action in December of the 2024 meeting to exempt both school district, the park district, and the local health department for all workers. AB Developers Act. All of those entities have otherwise been subject to the mandate and we were able to remove them of that liability. At tonight's board meeting, the board will be asked to further that action to exempt the state of the to act. The school districts and the other school districts were already exempted from that. But they did leave municipalities out of the we are able to exempt ourselves. Together, these two items have a projected savings of over $250,000 per year to the community. So this is already basically half tax liability to the community. The other item that is soon be presented for is the second installment of Rock Clubhouse General Obligation Bonds. That bond bill will be presented to the board for March. March. And this will be the village's first bond issue extended to 25 years. Previously, the non limited to borrowing to 20 years. By extending the bond issue to 25 years, we are projecting that annual debt service payment will be approximately $200,000 less next year. Which is a significant savings again that's attached to tax levy. And as we have discussed during the overall discussions or overall forums, that matches the repayment of the debt to those that are then paying off. So included in the map tonight, there are a number of areas in which the village needs to say local. One of the things that we're looking for from the board of meeting is direction on which, if any of these items, in having staff explore more. We're happy to give kind of a quick overview this evening, but certainly if anything that's not addressed in the memo or on presentation, I think also so first option, first category would be for revenue generation. Both the board and staff have discussed previous alternative revenue sources available to the local government. These can be used to bolster the revenue portfolio of the village, diversify where we get revenue, reduce the village's reliance on property taxes and lessen the tax burden to the community, or find alternative sources of funding to supplement those figures. Some of the actions that we outlined in this meeting, a lot of these we have talked about in the past. The first being expanding the village's places for eating tax into the beverage tax. The expanding would expand the definition of what this tax would apply to, such as this tax in particular is something that it's little for because it doesn't apply not only to residents, but to those that are in the community, work in the community, or patronize our businesses. An amusement tax could be applied to a variety of activities, held in entertainment venues. One of the avenues that we talked about is especially applying entertainment tax here. And just to give you an idea, in terms of lessening the tax burden on our residents, writers' theater sells more than 25,000 tickets to non-residents annually. So as far as applying a tax and lessening the burden on our residents, that would be something. That comes very right. Numbers. The additional another option would be to do an additional sales tax. This would be a home sales tax, similar to sales tax sharing that we receive from the state of Illinois. Right now, the village receives 1% of sales taxes that are generated in Glencoe, as well as for online sales. The only difference with the home sales tax is that it would exempt taxes on vehicles, medical supplies, and groceries. On the topic of groceries, the other option that we discussed is to replace an active tax, replace the elimination of statewide grocery tax that is effective January 6. If the board wishes to be pursuing this option, we do have to adopt that resolution by October 1st of this year. It needs to be in the hands of the Department of Revenue by October 1st in order to enact it effective January 2026. With the reasoning behind that deadline, so that the village is not recently included, that we would have otherwise detect. Our past projections on grocery tax indicates that that's about $200,000. That's a significant revenue loss if the board decides not to proceed with the option. Another option on the revenue side would be that with fees. These could be implemented certainly with the villages with the intention to for creation, support the cost of providing services to new developments, and also potentially provide a funding source for other housing goals that we may have. Next one would be a local Your fuel tax increase, currently the village has a 3 cent per gallon tax. This was actually enacted by state legislation. It's not the county. It was, I believe, supposed to be a statewide initiative. As an value, that is the max that we can have as a non-home unit. Out of tax, so it's not a large revenue, another option is outlined in the rules, commercial garbage intensity. That is, would be a fee that would apply dollars that provides services to our commercial companies in town. That has not previously been enacted, that is certainly. Are there any questions on that moving forward? I'd like to ask a question now.
Are we going to go in there number one? One question. Yep. Okay. On the demolition piece, could you do it so that it's, say for example, there's less fees on multi-families and single families. They encourage multi-families. That we see if possible. Yes. Okay.
Yes, we can grant it. You're interested in the demolition being granted. Sometimes it's done. You have to have a nexus to the impact that it creates. Sometimes it's done in veterans or square footage. Or is interested in being certain type of development.
Thank you for the second question, Nikki. What is, can someone who said it's sort of the local field tax card here start? I'm assuming there are more reasons for all. Maybe some are zero.
We have to do with their neighbors to determine that. Our neighbors to the north would not be able to, well, they could do something that any kind of price 5 cents. We can do a survey.
Sounds like we're going to just look like everybody.
Yeah, I think it would be worth us before we do anything with certainty. Any of these is that what we're looking for tonight is for guidance as to whether you have preference in doing that research as opposed to their specific yes or no. But yeah, I think we would want to get more information on that. The other thing I would say is that given the fact that we never really had the opportunity to ask these questions, we have to actually survey our neighbors on most of this because without home to agree, we never really did that. There was no benefit in asking questions. So I think what I would say is on any of these that you may find interesting, we want to do some more surveying. Just one other point as you go through this list, grocery tax, our law in conjunction with the University Conference developing an ordinance with all of our client units to consider in May of June. So, not in connection with your home rule discussion, we'll be presenting something for you on it or not. Right, no one thing or demolition fees or taxes. I would say that that is a component of what we would be looking at, anticipate looking at in the coming months, as a kind of function of the presentation commission that we're talking about. We are in the process of reviewing and analyzing our building permit fees, as a function of that. If you remember, with building permit fees, we have to some degree full definition ready. I think what we want to do is, if we're thinking about a standalone definition, we want to do that alongside the review of our structure overall. as just something that we best practice. I would say with impact fees, that's separate. Impact fees, we have not had the opportunity outside of local authority to look at that. There are impact fees, as Nikki mentioned, to park district, that's by state. And I think this is something we want to do some analysis with our neighboring communities. Definitely, this is something we have acted. Well, there are that there may be some legislation being introduced in this legislative cycle that would be completed. Even vulnerable communities in position to impact fees. So that's something that is we want to evaluate, understand, or overall, that is something that we want.
Thank you. Just clarifying, do you want our nod to do more research individually on taxes, or sort of general, yes, we'll do this?
Well, I would think if it's something that you really learn more about, we would want to know that. If there is something that is off the table, we don't want to. But if you're generally saying nothing is overly concerning or exciting, and you just want more information on all of this, that's good direction.
So there are certain things that you specific questions would be amusement tax. Forgive me if this is a relevant question, but is it possible to accept residents on an amusement tax?
I would be seriously concerned about taxes are imposed generally.
Okay. So no workaround residents.
Seriously, I research it.
And then another question about impact fees, that would apply to something that for expense. So we missed out on that opportunity because we weren't on the rule. And then is that something that we could look at in terms of what trustee Pollack is suggesting, if the project were to have results that are more in keeping with our long-term strategic plan, is that something that could be sort of carved out in that way?
I think we could talk about certainly different impact fee that would relate to multifamily versus single. I think Steve is nodding in affirmative, which always makes me feel. Certainly a lot more. Certainly, if you're talking residential subdivisions where you're adding units that didn't exist before, that would be relatively straightforward. And that's what we've been applying in Park District's strict impact fees for over the last number of years as those have been enacted through statutes.
To just follow Scott's point. If there are other things that are negative, it would be nice to find out about the topic that we've been able to contemplate. And I think for comments and questions they're hearing, especially those that would be shared broadly, not, and we would think they would just fall on residents, but actually others coming into our community to do. Obviously,
I would say if you're looking just at the list as a front of you this evening, grocery tax is something. And I say that this is in place. Again, this is in place. State action and giving us the authority to basically take what they have already imposed. But a number of our neighbors are discussing this in a few months. Mickey and I have been on a few different email strings where we're hearing from some of our neighbors, we and I would have both imposed it already. Highland Park is going to be talking about it in the next few months, as is Lake Bluff, Lake Forest, and Deerfield. And Glencoe. So our expectation is that the grocery tax is going to be something that is looked at pretty seriously in a number of our neighboring communities. Like us, it makes up a large portion of their revenue streams. I would say with respect to sales tax, you are also starting to see that that's a very individual community perspective. So for instance, the city of Highwood just this week has imposed a 2% homelessness tax to the limits for everything. Yeah. So that is within their home authority. They are limited to do that. That was just voted on by the state on Tuesday. So we do see those. With respect to amusement taxes, that they have other technologies, so we will pull information. Obviously, for a while, with respect to particularly, this is a tax that can be structured differently. Right? It can be structured as a flat tax or a percentage tax. We have that flexibility too, so we can do some research and bring some recommendations back to you on that. Obviously, if it's flat, you have a very relatively strong sense of what it's going to be. I would say food and beverage. This is one that we also see a lot of variation. A lot of our neighboring communities where some will be 2.5%, 3%. Again, it depends on priorities, and some of those communities have seen those tax structures as providing pretty significant benefit to. So we can come back to you with some ranges, if you will, of items and how to. I will say, when it comes to what does everybody else do with their house, I don't know if there's a lot of clarity outside of the list that we've provided to you. But what I'm saying is this will come with time as we contemplate adjustments to our fee structures and tax structures. In many cases, communities are contemplating these things as in response to something. And so the benefit, if you will, is that the first response to a question like that is, in terms of what could it be, is pretty much almost anything. Then it's, well, how do you want to extend? How do you want to create? So I think that's going to be something that as the time goes on, we all kind of get our ceilings with respect to this. We may consider. I would say in many cases, those discussions are made in an effort to limit growth in other areas. So how do you limit the tax fee over time? What sort of revenue structures can be put in place to reduce that impact to Ruben's point on our residents, perhaps by benefiting from those who come to visit. So I do think all of these are easy for us to come, and we'll do like that. And come back to, I think what we'd like to do with respect to some of these, particularly there's a general sense that the grocery tax is something we want to pursue at this point, given what Nikki has shared about timing. that's something we want to do sooner than later because there's a deadline attached. The rest of these are probably something we're anticipating as a structure of the 2026 budget, as opposed to something that we have to work to enact in the short term, unless it's a portion of something else, like as I said, talking about restructure.
I would say that I was like, we don't do anything about the grocery tax. We have between $200,000. That is absolutely critical that we need to take action at. And then, the question is, do we spin at or something different? I think this list is excellent and it certainly is very helpful. But I would love to see if listen to our is a nice little list, that will give us an idea how much income will be generated to those line items. I think it would be very easy together. Because I think then we could really prioritize where we see the opportunities.
Yes. Yeah. I think trustee listener, that's particularly helpful for you all as you're contemplating which to put in place. We can do that as a function of this broader survey. So as we're seeing maybe we're having work proposed, we can then monetize that.
Thank you. I have a whole laundry list of things that might be worth looking at. My first question relates to special service areas. Those special service area taxes be expanded with home rule or not expanded, or is that totally separate?
Yeah, we've always had the authority to create a special service area. It is a specific statutory process. So whether or not, so long as we follow the procedures in the statute, we put down and still can adopt a special service.
What we do have two of them currently. One subdivision, it's just as needed if we end up needing.
Well, I'm reflecting on these other communities where I worked in, where they had special service area taxes for economic development, public safety, emergency services, even landscaping and lighting. But anyway, I want us to be open to what all the possibilities are. Things. One of the areas that seems to be a big growing use in dollars, and I don't know if this is taken away with the state and federal government. Cable TV, internet, cell phone, we can't touch any of that stuff.
Well,
Telecommunications, we do have a telecommunications tax, and that is kind of value rate. We see that in declining each year, and each year in the budget year, and phasing it. There is an ability to do a streaming tax. We cannot list that here because it would just exclusively apply to the residents. That is something that we
There are communities that are contemplating those right now. Those are opportunities, particularly to make a point where we have seen a fall off in telecommunications taxes, even 911 fees and things like that, because of the fall off in landlines and fall off in cable. So those may be ways to augment some of those laws.
Just a comment on your fee study, it's important to do that. It's been brought to my attention that tree fees for removing trees and tree preservation, it's been almost 10 years. Looked at that particular area, probably should take a look at that again. let's see, let's we look at. Oh, now. The folks up at Highland Park have a housing trust plan. Do they implement that?
So, yes, the simple answer to that is that there's a bunch of tax that was created to part of that. And I think there are others, there may be other resources.
It's actually part of the area of affordable housing that allow all of which is now you are not going to consider.
The state has begun discussion about taxes on services. That's something we could also look at.
I don't think we can today, that would require anything.
Well, look, there's two sides to that answer. You know, you may be able to find a creative way to do tax services that are certain taxes that are specifically prohibited over Constitution. But the opposite side of that is, depending on how the state adopts a service tax, we may be able to opt out as a home rule. You know, we'll have to see if they preempt home rule or not. They do not, and we're unhappy with it. Able to opt out from the scope.
And then we may also be able to look at promoting sustainability. To the fees. It's a lot of opportunity.
I think, you know, going back to what I mentioned before, the kind of the struggle with home rule is the sky's the limit in many cases, and it really becomes a question of purpose. It becomes a question of to whom the impact falls and how the village wants to use those that free. There are communities around us certainly that have enacted certain fee structures on grounds of sustainability, for instance, to use that as an example, where there's a incentive, or I should say disincentive, to not do certain sustainable. Those are available. I think that's a question of, again, purpose and how we want to structure that. Something a broader concept. That's what I was mentioning before. When you talk about what are other people doing, what are other communities doing, a lot of those structures have been fee structures and tax structures have been created as a function of something that they want us to do. So those are open. I would caution that I think we would want to tie initiatives like that to something. We want to say, in an effort to change this practice or an effort to adjust this outcome, we want to impose this fee structure into programmatic change.
Yeah, I want to reinforce that just because we have these on the list doesn't mean that we should implement all these sets. That's not. Actually, I'm a big fan of fee for service. It's a little different tax. And I think for a community like ours, it's good to move in that direction. It seems to be more fair for how people using our services. So thank you very much.
If I may, just to add on to that, those recommendations are related to sustainability. We also provide sustainability. The staff is starting to work on plan initiatives this year. So this might be something that we can use to further those initiatives as well. And the only other item I wanted to mention is in terms of time frame. As we mentioned, the grocery tax is time sensitive. First, the same timeline we provide for any additional sales tax. We did do overall sales tax because those are administered in the state of Illinois. So the Department of Revenue has strict deadlines that we have to file them to have something effective January 1. If we didn't make the October deadline, we would push that to July. And then those are the only state administered fees on the screen. The rest of them, the only timeline considerations that we have to take into consideration is implementation. whomever these taxes and fees apply to. With food and beverage tax, amusement tax, we would have to be considerate of the retailers to which we apply. And then whatever software configurations they have to do on their end.
I do think that's a good point to underscore as well, is that the question was asked whether we could segregate certain individuals who would be subject to a tax or fee and others. There is an administrative effort. We also recommend some things to if not something that's part of the rural state. So, and that's how our food, our business breeding tax today is. That is a local process. They are submitting those funds directly to us and the states. With that, with that comes the administrative process that is not admittedly always seamless. So that's another consideration for us, is that some of this may actually create an administrative, say, burden, an administrative process that we would have to.
Questions. Nikki, thank you for the very thorough memo. I appreciate that you put it. It's very clear and very informative. I have two questions. Can someone explain what the impact fees for the school and park district are and how they're collected, and like what are we talking about? Just curious, range wise, that we collected.
We collect those when we have a subdivision that increases the number of residences. So for example, when Forest entry from 1 residence to 29 residences, 28 of those 29 will collect those fees at the time of, and it's based on the number of bedrooms. So it's not exactly a linear scale, but the more bedrooms typically we pay. 5 Briars, another subdivision where one house, 3 houses, 2 of those new houses, when they come in for building permits, on top of the standard engineering fees, we charge them additional fees.
So we collect those and send them to the park, and then are they $200?
I'll just expand on that. Theory is that the municipality, local government, has the ability in connection with its subdivision authority to collect such a fee. Schools do not, our districts do not, libraries do not. And so for years in Illinois, local governments have been doing this more as an accommodation to their sister governments because of the impact that that development have on them, but because of the lack of that those respective governments have with respect to.
Are they a few $100s? I just give a range.
No, for a 4-bedroom house, 5-bedroom house, it's more like 10. I don't know the exact number, but it's somewhere around that range.
So if we impose something similar, it would be in that similar range.
It could be.
It could be, yeah, it could be actually the word impairments. Those are set. So that's why they are looking. Taylor's point. They're not insignificant large. Yes, so although there is some weird thing.
There is.
5.
Like 4 bedrooms, most
Never.
expensive.
I was just trying to get kind of the scale here. Okay, I guess my last question, just to tag on to trustee listeners' comment. When we look at our table, when we come back, can we try to differentiate what the resident impact would be versus the non-resident? So we kind of try to divide or estimate. Because I think it's important to try to show that maybe most of these revenue opportunities here would be mostly paid for by non-residents. I think that'd be probably a good idea.
And
Is there
to the
a-
extent that that information is available, it'll be easier on us.
Yeah.
But
Again, not to add too much work here, or, just some range, use your judgment, just, I think it would be helpful. as we answer questions from our neighbors and whatnot. Thank you.
Dudley's point. Certainly. Burden would be shared by those not live. We know that some of these fall, people live in all of it. Tax and such, but those are also more into fee for service. Basically, you're not moving one of these things in particular. Tax or fee doesn't apply. So again, it's just a question of overall how do we want to address our finances and the continuing efforts to not continue to let the real estate tax bills be sent out, just keep going up. All right. Steve.
Okay, so our next inquiry is on government initiatives to be kind of whole, talk about the legal flexibility and with that, that's certainly for development and conservation, also preserving here. Another option would be short-term rental regulations. We don't have the issue. Sort of forward-thinking legislation, to address issues, or would like to regulate those in advance. Some are sort of issues with that. So you can regulate anything from like stay, areas in which you can be permitted, so lots of that would be another option, housing options. Certainly we consider regulation, policies to help investors and in the community or encourage housing in Glencoe. And we've had conversations with them, not only in them, but also with zoning. We also talked quite a bit about the safety department, benefits of having overall authority. Overall authority does allow us a little bit more flexibility in terms of hiring practices, allowing us to specifically described in statutes in terms of the hiring process, and then also promotional flexibility and the structure of public safety. Well, as you may recall from the budget process here, we are doing a staffing study, and that will certainly help in terms of the flexibility that we would have there. And as trustee honor question, also tree protection, information for the tree commission and our urban plan. We have the ability to make modifications there in terms of policy or regulation and invasive species for communities. So obviously the structure associated with that. Also to credit trustee on the slide, but also consider regulation related to sustainability, things that we just talked about in the past, advanced products, specific products that are harmful to the environment, which is our asphalt products, more effective incentivizing sustainable practices. I am already talked about it, considering not recommending at this time our neighbors to work with tax to promote that. But again, it's something that we really want to align that long term. Another thing that I did want to just mention on this slide, we talked about in the past the potential for regulating firearms in one couple, whether or not free. Specific of interest was safe storage of guns. We had done research on this and determined that it would not fall within exclusively within the powers of the state. There was a time window briefly in 2017 where you could enact legislation to regulate firearms. That window has since closed, but if a question, or do you have a question for my some of this legislation maybe cannot? I think that would pause here for any questions or any other thoughts that you have on this.
This is, if I can just add to what Nikki's comments were, this is the really the structure where addressing a concern, addressing an opportunity is at the board's fingertips in a way that it never did. So if there's a regulatory conflict that you want to explore that's related to or not any of these items that are on the screen, the answer may be not if do you want to use or develop a program. These are concepts that we have talked about over the last several years. There are many more that could be considered. Give the village the ability to solve local issues through the government's changes. And so this may be something that isn't so much of an absolute let's do this today. Maybe this is more a reminder that as we all get more comfortable with reporting, we have a better sense. We may have the ability to address the issue that frustrated in a way that we have the ability to do some. So it's just a good reminder that this is an area where solving a problem may be possible, where it may not.
A public safety staffing. That comes back to that whenever recommendations come from that. That's one that I think is one to work on. Work on today. We already know that we talked about so many. We have some various but we have any specific comments.
Bill, I know you've been working on this issue that mentioned the whole aspect of local adjudication, fines, that sort of thing. Does that help us as well? Area?
Interestingly, the statute changed really to allowing local units to have a local adjudication program. That is something we are in the process of bringing back recommendations to hopefully this summer. But yeah, for sure, we are looking at a local adjudication. It's just, it makes sense. I'm grateful that the state changed the statute. Doesn't matter,
And also, hopefully, it helps the encourage intergovernmental cooperation as well.
Staff is that kind of yes.
So you want me to roll with some of this? So this is, again, this is not an area that the village has really ever been overly engaged in the past. There have been some initiatives over time that talk about very shortly extended, but the opportunities around economic development are broader. And again, we are somewhat limited standpoint the footprint that we have to work with any of our commercial districts. But the opportunity that may be present with still. So this is something obviously we will talk about this month as we contemplate the development of planning and development ordinance, as we think about zoning restrictions in some of the district But what we just want to make mention of tonight, and again, this is really just kind of a primer to get the wheels turning in our brains, is that there are opportunities that present themselves if we want to move forward with redevelopment initiatives in the future. Obviously, one that is the Groundhog Day discussion is the garage site. The parking lot that exists to the south of it. If we think back to 5 years ago, we were having discussions in late 2019 on the possibility of establishing a resident committee that would help to advise the board on potential redevelopment opportunities there, and the pandemic started in the back burner of that discussion. But that is the area of interest that the conference and spent a great deal of time talking about land commission and community, and there are several recommendations that are included. Some. So the other piece of this obviously is timeline. It takes a while to do some of the things that we may have to do. President Brown and I have had some conversations about the fact that if we were to see opportunity to redevelop those parcels, one of the big points that has to be resolved is a new public works. We think we have space for it. Our lot on the west side area is, but the planning studies that told us that are now 25 years old. So we're going to have to re-educate some planning studies. We're going to have to start talking about costs. The possibility of bringing together an advisory or to help with the staff and work, consider what the future might look like for those parcels. I think is an open question, worthwhile effort to undertake. We have a history in Glencoe, relying on skill sets which are vast investments to help with things like commercial redevelopment and contemplating paths forward on that. I do think that's another aspect of this. And when you start talking about those pieces of this, very practical parts of it, and then perhaps what we begin to see in its place is when you have the opportunity to start thinking about other things like incentive, their sales tax sharing, other sorts of financing options that present themselves in an environment like Glencoe's, which is an expensive proposition to redevelop. You know, are there ways forward that we never utilized before? Simple answer to that is with home rule, yes, there are ways forward. Those would perhaps make themselves more visible in the coming few years as we accomplish the work that was just talked about. So again, these are just points to be mindful of the immediacy of this and not tomorrow. But today, I think there is a value beginning the process. It will take not only to begin the planning process, but if we were to relocate, we have to build one. And so that by itself is a process. Upwards of probably 16. So we do want to be mindful of timing. When we talk about redevelopment, you are talking of years. And by years, I mean half a decade. So I do think there's value in us being thoughtful about it, considerate of the new authority and perhaps widening it.
Last subject matter area is the community. So we talked a lot about this in our discussions, and reforms. The overall authority certainly allows greater flexibility in financing capital projects over time of borrowing, where we will to a referendum schedule. And also the point of borrowing, the tighter term of bonds that we collect. This would be particularly important as we start to look at larger capital projects in the future. As Bill mentioned, whatever the history or future will be of the public works facility, but also particularly important as the board continues to contemplate the path forward as a water source, whether it's going to be some sort of state plant or permanent agency. Certainly that's going to be a significant capital investment. We have the opportunity to stretch those funds out over a long period of time to make that more. We also have greater flexibility in timing with capital projects. The first two bullets go hand in hand. With that flexibility of financing, we have the ability to start pre-planning, starting these capital projects earlier than we would have been able to do in the past as well. And then this also is possible make part of the first slide on revenues. These can alternate sources of funding for the capital plan. In the past, we have been beholden to the revenues. We have this strict process of borrowing, and we look at 3 years out to determine our capital needs, and then that's to us. We still are subject to the restrictions as far as the date on funding, the timing of spending, and our kind of regulations that we have to abide by. Now we also have the option to our alternative to subsidize the bond. Again, kind of going with the scheme of minimizing the village's reliance on property taxes and moving more toward a fee-based service. So we do have an ability to implement stormwater fees, particularly to supplement our stormwater projects. This was one of the first things that they did with their significant thing within their reporting. Because they were a funding source, they were also very successful in gaining federal funding for large capital projects. I don't know what the future of that will be. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But stormwater fees are certainly something. And also, as we look at the future of water and water treatment source, we're also contemplating updating water analysis. That was last updated in 2016, 2017. So it is in desperate need of updating. We're also updating our master planning with CIP, so this will do that as we look at updated numbers of what we might be facing in the next 10 years. We will have the ability to look at financing those infrastructure projects differently than we have in the past.
So as with these points, I think our brains are still trying to wrap themselves around how we may rethink our entire CIP process. As Mickey was mentioning, without being beholden to specific referendum schedules, we may have the ability to do small bond issues on a regular basis that brings us a more structured annual investment in something like street resurfacing. It may bring us a more structured annual investment in the broad-based projects that we talked about, where we try to do surface as well as subsurface improvements at the same time. So we're starting to really think about what's like and to think about how to pay for it. I think the point of the efforts that they have utilized their stormwater management fees in efforts to limit upward property taxes to pay for those improvements. Yes, it's the same people. It fits differently, right? So we talked about fees for service that may be improved. Consider consider outside of solar fees are just not good. So, I'll say, here in the every community around us who has a robust stormwater management program, it's all. And we also work on this. So, those are things for us to consider. I would just also say that I don't think, you know, 2026 is to have a revolutionary new CIP attached. As Monica has talking about, one of the things that we're really focused on is data development and understanding and condition assessments of our various infrastructure components. As we build out more information, I think that the next couple of years is going to give us an opportunity to perhaps completely rethink the RCIP structure and giving us perhaps a very new way of doing some business. You know, I think you all know this, right? We handled them very piecemeal, not to some degree. They feel very much as though they're buckets, right? So we have stormwater projects, sidewalk projects, street projects, and water main projects. And, you know, being able to align those together is made much simpler in the environment that we're in. So we're going to be retraining ourselves. It's been 11 years since I've worked in the community. I've forgotten this because it's one of those things that you don't work it because you don't have it. It's not even contemplated, you know, as we rethink, we train ourselves and analyze what our neighbors are doing. I think this is an area that's going to be a thing. Very short term, it's about, you know, where we have the ability to, when we're issuing that debt for the appropriate term. You're going to see next month when there's an agenda item from the remaining debt for one month project is 25 year debt. Nikki's estimating that's $200,000 a year or so savings in the debt service annually. So that's not happening. And yes, it's a longer term, but again, it's marrying the term to the use of that asset, which is very much what we were talking in the lead up to. So those opportunities will present themselves quickly. And you know, I think we need to look at the depth that we have, see where we may have some flexibility with the grading that we've got. So I think it's kind of one of the fine areas for us to be looking at. They're all fun for us. Oh. First of all, thank you. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to do next is, okay. As we've heard about before, and we've heard about before today, and how we talk about this just individual topic contexts like zoning. We've gone from a world, you know, here's a circle, and that limits what you can do, how you can do, how you can pay for it. To what do you want to do? How do you want to pay for it? And unless the state says no, the state, I mean Steve, tells us, no, can't do that. That's a comfort law, it's just infinite. That doesn't mean, oh my gosh, everything falls on the tracks because we don't know what to do. We continue to keep doing what we're doing. And there's some low hanging fruit that's already discussed. Even given direction to something soon. It's a good example. And some things about obviously for floating bonds or well, we're going to try and tie them to the useful life project, in this case, the length of the lease, etc. And those are the easy ones, but given the immense amount of work that everyone's already doing, and
CIP and everything else, all the things that we're already working on as priorities. What do we want to ask our folks to be working on as priorities going forward as they're figuring things out? If anybody has thoughts about that, given what you just heard, discussion, that I think is what staff is looking.
I'll just jump in quickly. You know, we've worked out with the STF, many ideas that have been brought to the table, through varying meetings at the committee level and then internal meetings. It was mentioned in the memo, we talked about it here. I think the STF, and I would love to see this coal tar asphalt ban be implemented. We've discussed, all of our neighbors are doing it. You know, we feel like the only ones that aren't. So maybe it's something we consider as like a slam dunk and an easy win.
Interesting when we did a lot of research. So that actually is really easy.
Yeah.
Negative impact, which just reinforces practice. But I think we get some.
Thank you.
I think we agree the revenue study was higher than the list compared. And then instead of trustees and 20%, which is very rapid. For example, if you take gas at 3 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents, what does that do? Can we go that spreadsheet? I would suggest, and going back to the development. Second phase is would say, let's do that part that we we've always talked about that will be the best thing for the community. Maybe there was a the best thing that also might be like and also it's revenues from the village, but I'm not sure that's worth discussing until we actually get it and thought of where do we put it? The garage. What astronomical number really want to do the downtown is red. If you take that compared to water and say we want to have 2 competing. Yeah, I think that's a really part of it is, as I mentioned, you were alluding to, right? The information that we have today is very old, and we need to bring that up to speed to get a sense of what. The one point that I think is interesting leads to the downtown is that it isn't though necessarily something that is solely a. We do we control nearly all of that and that. Garage exists, so we have an asset that can be leveraged against those costs, and it is now an area that we spent a lot of time. This isn't something we had real talk, real discussions about. And this is a piece of that equation that I think is so important, is to understand what cost us, but then where the development benefit what that may be.
I have one more, sorry, just to discuss a little bit more about our CIP and our ideas and how we're moving forward with thinking. I know we've talked about this also at our finance committee, maybe in more detail, but maybe just to share with the rest of the board and anyone listening. I mean, I'm very excited about the way that Monica is thinking about our CIP and the rest of the staff as well. And I do want to just emphasize, you know, we're here to support the Engineering Public Works Department in any way that they need. I do want to also state that I'm very interested in ensuring that our town remains as resilient and sustainable as possible. And if there are any technology needs or, you know, asset management software ideas that you want to float by us, I think I'd be very willing and interested to help support that. I'm sure maybe the rest of the board would also be willing to support that. So very excited, and I'm here to assist in any way possible. Thank you.
was. Ask the question, feedback, helpful, never ask a question. Yeah.
I mean, we have some waiting for the almost Friday. And we clearly have correction on the here and notification. Spring next year, so.
And with that. Is there any? Thoughts? If we could have a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, we're adjourned and the board meeting starts in 7 o'clock. Thank you.